My name is Victor. I am the occult technician, and this is Mind War. Mind War is sponsored by Victory Work Apparel. Use promo code Mind War. Join the Mind War today. Enlist at patreon.com/mindwar. Now, back to the show. Welcome back to Mind War, folks. I appreciate you being here. We have a lot to cover today, so let's get started. Folks, this is the Mind War series on magic, series finale, part 1. This is going to be a 2-part series finale. Before we dive too deep into what we're going to cover in this episode, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So, once we get done with these 2 episodes, I'm going to disappear for a bit. I'm going to take some well-deserved and well-needed time off, a little hiatus, if you will. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be working hard, working diligently at the Mind War podcast. So once we finish up with this series on magic with these 2 final episodes, I'm going to begin working on the Mind War series on the 12 tribes, right? So this is the cult that runs the Yellow Deli. You can find them at 12tribes.org. This is the cult that my friend Dayag, my best buddy Joey, who I met when I was 5 years old, he's been a member of this cult for 25 years, and I thought this would be a very interesting series to work on. I think I'm going to have a perspective on it that most people who've created videos about the 12 tribes, they do it in a sort of generic way, and so I hope to bring something new to it, something new to the story there. But my goal with the 12 Tribe series is to really push my art a little further than it has been so far. And so I really want to take the time to prepare for that and do really a lot of pre-recording. My goal is to have the entire series recorded before I even put the first episode out. So thus far in the Mind War podcast, I have been recording maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 episodes at most and kind of front loading them for all of you. Some days or some episodes, literally, it's just been week to week. I've been recording them, and that is very daunting. That is a lot of work for an old man. So again, my goal is to really push the limits of my art with this Mind War series on the 12 tribes. And it's going to be a much shorter series. My goal is 13 episodes, okay? And that is, if you look back at the rest of the series that I've done here, the Mind War series on the Gateway Experience tapes, that was something like 48 to 50 episodes. This Mind War series on magic has been, I think it's going to end up being 41 or more episodes. So the Mind War series on the 12 tribes, again, is going to be much, much shorter. And then, once I get done with that series, I'm going to take an even longer hiatus. You may not see me for quite some time. So once I am done with the 12 tribes series, I have 2 art projects left. I'm not going to spoil what those are going to be, but they are going to be very extensive. They're going to be a real breakaway from what I've been doing thus far, and they're going to take me quite a long time. And so I really need to be able to take the time to focus on those. And really, these are, they're going to be the finishing up of this 7-year art project. This is going to be the final pieces to this project here. So I'm very excited to kind of move out of the podcasting realm and doing some different media here. But, while I am gone, don't forget about your buddy Victor here. So most of you that are watching, or some of you that are watching, might be new to the Mind War podcast. So once I do take this hiatus between this series on magic and then the series on the 12 tribes, go back to Mind War episode 1, season 1, right, where we work through the book Mind War by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aguino, right? Go ahead and look back at some of those older episodes, or go back and revisit the series on the Gateway Experience tapes. Set your alarm for every Sunday at noon and go back and watch another episode of Mind War. So I hope you have enjoyed what you've seen here in this Mind War series on magic. I'm very excited to share with you some very interesting and compelling stories in these 2 final episodes. And we're going to do that when we return in just a moment. All right, welcome back, folks. The first section here in this Mind War series on magic series finale, part 1, the first thing that I wanted to cover is basically what I'm just calling magic by numbers. Okay, so again, one of the main things that I've tried to do here in this Mind War series on magic is truly share with all of you how to have magical experiences, how to actually do the rituals. Again, I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not telling you the style that you should do. You don't have to copy my style or my belief system. But what I am doing is I'm sharing with you universal techniques on how to actually practice magic and experience magic in your life. This is something that I did not find really almost anywhere. All of the occultists, all of the esoteric teachings out there that I saw other people doing, again, they would just cover these sort of fairy tales. They would talk about the symbolism and the monsters and all of the stories that were surrounded with it. But they would never really just break it down and say, here's what you need to do to actually practice magic. Here are the steps that you need to take. And so I'm going to do my best to share that with all of you right now. And really, again, this is what I just call magic by numbers, how to actually perform rituals and ceremonies, okay? So the first thing is 90 days of preparation. So before you do your first magical ritual, I really think you need to take at least 90 days to prepare. And so here's the hard part, folks. Let me say this real quick. Today is Snowmageddon or whatever. It is freezing down here right now. It was negative 14 degrees when I left the Mind War Manor this morning to come over here to the Mind War Estates. So please bear with me. I am freezing cold down here in the Mind War Studios, even after running the heater for quite some time. Sorry about that, folks. I just want to let you in on what's going on here. So again, the first thing I think you need to do is 90 days of preparation, and that begins the very first thing, and this is the thing that I think is going to knock a lot of people out of it. I think you have to do 90 days of sobriety. I think you need to do 3 full months of sobriety, and you have to really become sober from all of it, right? Alcohol, drugs, tobacco if you can. I know that's going to be really hard for the smokers out there. And then again, this is not medical advice, but I really think you have to get off the SSRIs, any of the pills that the doctors are giving you to kind of control your, chemical imbalances and all that nonsense. I think you really have to sober up from all of it for at a minimum of 90 days. And again, right there, that first ask, that's going to be enough for a lot of people to say, I'm out, right? But I guess that really breaks it down to who's serious about practicing magic and who's not. Can you make it through 90 days of sobriety? It's going to be difficult. You're going to be filled with emotions. You're going to be filled with all sorts of pain. But you need that, because that's what's going to fuel your magic, is your emotion and your pain. Next, during this 90-day preparation period, you're going to gather your magical accoutrement. Things like your tarot cards, your black mirrors, your crystals, your obsidian balls, whatever type of magical devices, statues, any of the type of things that call to you. Again, I'm not saying what style you need to do, but whatever calls to you for your magical rituals and ceremonies, you want to start gathering those things, okay? And again, if you look back when we started this Mind War series on magic and we went through my magical journey over on Instagram at The Occult Technician, you see my earliest posts where we had the pentagram mat that I bought off of Amazon and the tarot cards that I bought off of Alibaba and all this stuff, right? I mean, these were just very cheap, generic things that I just knew that I needed to get started. And as we went through, and as you saw through my journey, I acquired more and more, again, the obsidian ball, the black mirror, all of these things that I was acquiring became much cooler, if you will. They had more personal meaning. We found a lot of personal meaning in things like my father's bayonet that he had with him in Vietnam. I use that as part of the ritual. The clay dish or the clay skull that I made when I was a child, right? These type of things that have meaning to you, this is the time to start gathering those up, right? Next is you need to prepare your altar space. So again, you may not have a lot of free space in your home. You may be confined to a bedroom if you live in a home with a bunch of other people, right? But you need to dedicate a specific space in your living area for your altar. And again, if you find yourself living in a home where this type of magical work is going to be frowned upon, then you're also going to have to find ways to conceal it, right? We learned that in Mind War Season 1, when we worked through the book Mind War, that you do have to be your own secret agent in a way, and you have to be covert about these things. Do not make the same mistake I did and try to proselytize your family and friends while you are in these early stages. Don't do it. Everyone's going to look at you weird, and worse. Maybe, they could cause some real trouble for you, and you want to avoid that. So again, preparing your altar space. And that's fun, man. This is where you get to be creative. Do whatever you want. You don't have to follow my style. That's not what I'm saying. You can come up with whatever you like. So the next, again, do not, this is not advice at all. Don't do any of the things that I'm about to say, especially if you live in a jurisdiction where the things that I'm about to mention are highly illegal. Do not do these things. But my next suggestion is to acquire marijuana and magic mushrooms. These are going to be crucial, right? And again, if you can't do these things, if you're not healthy enough for these things, I don't know. I'm not really sure what to tell you. At this point in my life, as I am working towards, turning 50 in the next few years, right? I don't physically feel able to really use magic mushrooms anymore. I let all of you know a few months ago that I had to stop using marijuana. After almost 30 years, right? My blood pressure was going through the roof. I thought I was about to have a heart attack. So that's been very difficult. Again, that was a demon that I wasn't ready to really face, but it was kind of forced upon me through my health. So again, there may be a lot of reasons why you can't do this. If you live in a place where marijuana and magic mushrooms, you're going to end up going to jail for a long time, right? Then don't do that. But I don't know. I'm sure there are other ways that magic can work for you, but I really, truly believe that the magic mushrooms, they call them magic for a reason. I think they are instrumental. I think they are a fundamental, universal part of practicing magic in order for you to actually have the real experiences of magic, right? And again, I say acquire them. We've talked about this before. I think your magical journey to really go from the initiate to actually becoming a magician. We've talked about that story of how I became the magician. I think it's going to take you about 3 years. That's what I found myself. That's the story that I keep hearing over and over again with other people who've become magicians. It seems like it takes about 3 years, this process. So again, if you can, acquire the amount that you're going to need for that time. It's really not that much. From what I found with growing the magic mushrooms myself, really 1 or 2 grows, you're going to have enough, especially when you dry them out and turn them into powder form. And again, the dosage that I use, I think we talk about this here a little bit more, is so small, right? I use such a small, low dose of the magic mushrooms, of the psilocybin, and even for the THC, it's a low dose. Because again, while you're practicing magic, you have to still be in control of your mind and your physical body enough to do the actual ritual. You can't be so whacked out of your mind on drugs that you can't control yourself, right? So again, I would suggest acquiring your marijuana and your magic mushrooms prior. And the marijuana, for me, I got the THC gummies. I made marijuana-infused coconut oil. I had the vape pens. I had the flower, right? So I had several different variations of it, and I used all of them in my work. And then again, the magic mushrooms, I just dried them out, turned them in the powder form. I found that was the easiest way to have consistent doses week after week after week. So next, you're going to download the Gateway Experience tapes. You have to have a copy of the Gateway Experience tapes downloaded to your phone or your computer, whatever device you're going to be listening to them from. Or hell, if you want to go to hemisync.org or .com or whatever it is and buy the CDs, go ahead. They're super expensive. But there are plenty of places to find the Gateway Experience tapes for free on the internet. YouTube, just look up the Gateway Experience tapes. You're going to see several different channels out there who have complete copies of them. But do not rely on streaming them. You do not want to be in a position where you are listening to the tapes and then all of a sudden a commercial comes on. That's going to destroy and take you right out of the tape. You don't want to have your Wi-Fi cut out or have it start buffering, anything like that. You need to get a solid copy of the tapes and have them recorded to the device that you're going to be using. Again, I just would listen to them on the Beats headphones. Again, this is the next thing. So you're going to, again, get a copy of the Gateway Experience tapes. I had them on my phone. I then used the Beats headphones. I tried several different brands of headphones. I find that Beats are the best. Again, on Amazon, they're usually $100 or less. They're constantly on sale. So this isn't something where this is a huge amount of money that you need to start doing this stuff. A few $100, and I think you're going to really get started, and I know that's a tough ask for a lot of people out there, but it is something that's important. So the Gateway Experience tapes, the Beats headphones, and of course eye covers. Go on Amazon, search for eye covers. There's several that are about $20 to $30 that are nice, cushioned, really padded. You really need the eye covers when you're listening to the tapes. It just helps you really stay in that darkness, stay in the abyss. Your eyes aren't going to open up. They're not going to be influenced by any light that might be going on in your room. And then lastly, in this 90 days preparation period, you're going to want to download the magical music that you're going to be listening to while you do your rituals and your ceremonies. And again, You have to download it. You have to make a copy of it. Don't rely on some streaming services where it's going to be broke up by a bunch of commercials. You don't want to be taken out of the state of somnambulance because a commercial comes on, right? As far as the music is concerned, there's a YouTube playlist on my channel at The Occult Technician called Magical Music. I suggest downloading a video titled Don't Sleep by Evil Aesthetic. This is the music that I used in every single ceremony for the full 3 years where I was really doing the hardcore extreme magic. And this is a wonderful video. Basically, it's a bunch of rap songs that have old horror movie trailers played in between each of the songs. This guy, Evil Aesthetic, who created this video, I believe he is a magician as well. He or she, I'm not really sure. I believe they are a magician as well, and they created this music specifically, these videos specifically for us to practice magic with. They work perfectly. They are amazingly choreographed, right? So as you are listening to the song, while you're listening to the music itself, that's when you are in the state of somnambulance, in the trance. That's when you're actually going to be practicing the magic. You're going to be staring into the obsidian ball. You're going to be pulling the tarot card, is when the music is playing. And then every few minutes, boom, that horror movie trailer starts and it takes you out of the state of somnambulance. It takes you out of the trance. You're able to kind of shake it off, prepare for the next song, and then you again go back into that trance-like state, that state of hypnosis, to do the actual practice, right? So again, download your magical music. So number 2 here, let's see, prep for practice. Okay, so this is in the lead up to actually doing the magical ritual. So again, I do my rituals on the full moon and the new moon. So you basically have 2 weeks or more between each magical ritual. I think that's really the best way to do it, folks. It's the perfect amount of time between each one. This isn't something you want to rush. You don't want to be doing this every single day. You want to have something to look forward to. Maybe on a weekly basis if you wanted to. I wouldn't push it any faster than that. You don't want to be doing this every day. Give yourself time to really build up and be excited about what is coming and prepare for it, right? So the first part about prepping for your practice, again, in those days leading up to it, gentlemen, this is for you, semen retention. I know it sounds crazy, but you really got to keep your hands off yourself as long as you can in the lead up to actually doing the ritual. If you can go the whole time, great, but at least a few days, because that is going to help fuel your kundalini. Again, doing the semen retention with the Kegels, that exercise where you're pushing these fluids, you're pulling them upwards. That's what is going to refill your chakras and all that, right? This is a massive part of it. It really is, because it provides you with those chemicals, those natural chemicals that allow you to feel your emotions. And when you do this in combination with the psilocybin, the THC, the music, the breath work, with that kundalini rising, right? You're pushing all those chemicals upwards, those natural chemicals that your body produces. It creates just amazing experiences, very highly potent emotions, right? So now on the day of your practice, in those hours leading up to it, number 1, you're going to clean yourself. You're going to take a shower. You're going to kind of do your ritual bathing, if you will. For me, it was shaving the head, trimming the beard, taking the shower, all the things that you do. Maybe not on a daily basis, but you're really going to get yourself cleaned up, because again, you want to feel your best when you are doing this work. Next, you're going to clean your home to the very best of your ability. Again, when you start this stuff, man, when you start this magical practice, you may be in a very depressed state, and just the idea of cleaning your bedroom is enough to make you make you not want to go any further. But this is part of the preparation. You really have to do this. You really have to put yourself through that hell before you get into this, right? And again, it should give you motivation. The experiences that are coming because of the work that you're going to do, this is the motivation to do these things, to do the uncomfortable things, right? So you're going to clean your home, and then you're going to prepare your altar. You want to make sure your altar is ready to go before you go into the next steps, right? Because you don't want to be trying to prepare your altar once you have taken the THC, which is the next step here. So you're going to eat a light meal. You do not want to be bogged down with a bunch of greasy foods. Again, a lot of what we're doing here is health-centered. You're trying to transform yourself. And part of that is becoming a healthier version of yourself. So you're going to want to eat a light meal and then ingest your THC and your psilocybin about 1 hour prior to when you're going to actually start your magical ritual. Again, I like to do all of this at night. Nighttime is a much better time to do this. It's quiet out in the world. I like to do this very late at night, to be honest. Normally, I would kind of start around 10 p.m., 11 p.m., that way things are very quiet. And again, the darkness helps with facilitating hallucinations because your eyes are constantly grasping to see things, right? So again, ingest your low-dose THC and your low-dose psilocybin. Give them 45 minutes to an hour to kick in. And while you're doing that, do some light stretching. Get on the exercise bike. Get your blood flowing, right? You don't want to just sit there like a slug waiting for the toxins to kick in, right? You really want to try to get that blood flowing, right? And so now it's time to actually begin the practice. So this is step number 3 here. You're going to start by listening to the Gateway Experience tapes. Whatever tape you're going to be listening to that night, if you're doing them linearly in a linear fashion for the first time, or again, like I suggest, if you are listening to the tapes for the first time, you're going to stay in wave 1 for quite a while, right? Go through the tapes. I think it's wave 1, tape 2, and tape 4 and 5. You can redo these tape 6, redo them over and over and over again, maybe for 3 months or more, before you actually move into wave 2 and wave 3 and 4 and beyond, right? Because wave 1, you get those basics, right? So again, that first step there to actually doing your magical practice, you're going to listen to the Gateway Experience tapes, because the tapes are going to put you in a state of somnambulance, hypnosis, trance, or AKA sleepwalking. You have to get in that state of somnambulance, and that's what the tapes are going to help you do. Robert Monroe, the creator of the Gateway Experience tapes, he walks you through self-hypnosis, right? You're going to hypnotize yourself while you're listening to the tapes. And again, with the THC and the psilocybin working, all of this is going to get you into that trance-like state, that hypnotic state, that state of somnambulance, which is crucial to doing real magic. I do not think that you can practice real magic without getting into the state of somnambulance. That's what we heard over and over and over again from the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl. He really pushed the emphasis of getting into this trance-like state of hypnosis called somnambulance. Next, once you're done listening to the tapes, you're going to go out to your altar. The room is going to be dark. You're going to light your candle. Again, from the book Magic, History, Theory, Practice by Dr. Ernst Schertl, he talked about the importance of having the darkened room with just one candle lit. That really helps, again, facilitate those hallucinations. The goal is to have hallucinatory experiences. You want to hallucinate. I know it sounds crazy, right? Most people, oh, hallucinations are scary and all this. No, we are doing it in a controlled fashion. Again, this is the scientific breakdown of how to practice magic. And the reason I say it's scientific is because we have the list of how to actually do it, right? And we can recreate it over and over and over again, these experiences. This is the beauty of the Gateway Experience tapes. Robert Monroe was absolutely a scientist. He knew how to use science and technology in order to get us into the state of somnambulance. And again, when we move into the magical practice itself, into the ritual itself, we are doing it in a scientific way because we can explain everything that is happening in these magical experiences in a scientific manner. It's not just esoteric mumbo jumbo. We can explain it, why things are happening scientifically. So once you light your candles, the next thing that I like to do is smoke marijuana. So this is when you're actually going to smoke the flower. This, for me, would always enhance the psilocybin, just really kick it up another notch. You're already in that state of somnambulance, but man, you smoke a little bit of weed, and now it really goes tenfold. Then you're going to begin listening to the magical music. Again, I suggest Don't Sleep by Evil Aesthetic. And then you're going to do your magical stretching movements. Okay, so again, a few episodes ago, we talked about, and I showed you an example of the magical stretching that I do. It was based on the, I believe it was the OTO. They do their own, pentagram stretching kind of exercise. I tried that. It didn't really feel right to me, so I kind of came up with my own stretching exercises. I showed those to you. And now's the time when you do that, right? Again, it's going to get the blood flowing before you actually sit down at your altar, which is the next step, number 4, at the altar. When you're sitting at the altar and you're listening to the music, you're going to breathe along with the music. I'm not here to teach you breathing techniques, right? I'm not here to tell you breathe in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold the exhale for 4, right? You breathe with the music. The music will guide you. You're going to breathe in with the crescendos and exhale. You're going to know when to do it. And again, holding the exhale is the most important part. When you hold that exhale, that's when the world really starts to transform around you and those hallucinations get very intense. When you're at the altar, again, this is when you're going to be pulling your cards, when you're doing your tarot cards. And again, you're going to do that with micro movements. You're not going to be shuffling like some kind of Vegas casino dealer. Micro movements is how you actually, go through the cards. Your hands are just there to facilitate the card being found. The card that is going to be pulled that night, it knows which card it is. It has to find its way out of the deck. It's not about you pulling it. It's almost about it pulling itself, and it will facilitate it through these micro movements. And again, the micro movements, whether it's pulling tarot cards or any other type of magical practice that you're doing, again, those micro movements are crucial. And then for me, again, this is the last part. When you're at the altar there, is the blood offering. I do a blood offering every new moon to whichever demon that I worked with the month before. I put it on the little sheet of paper that has all the 72 demon symbols from the Guedia. And if you are going to be doing some type of blood offering, that's again when you do it. And again, use a medical grade lancet, that tiny little piece of blue plastic with a tiny little needle. Just prick your finger. All you need is 1 drop. You're not going to be cutting yourself. You're not going to be hurting yourself or others. That is not what they need. They just need 1 drop for your offer. That's it. Number 5 here, some of the advanced magical techniques that we've talked about. Number 1 is the stare. Remember, we looked through that book, Magic Eye Gallery, where you stare into these pictures that are just kind of look like digital fuzz, right? Doesn't really make sense, but when you stare through the image, a 3D image starts to appear, right? You're going to use that stare. Again, That's why they call it the magic eye gallery. It's why they call them magic mushrooms. They were hiding it right in front of us the whole time. And I know it sounds silly and I know it sounds childish to be like, Victor, you want us to look at a kid's book called Magic Eye Gallery, this little trick where you see these three-dimensional images? Yes, you need to do that in order to practice, because you're going to use the stare to stare into the black mirror. You're going to use the stare when you're staring into your obsidian ball. It's crucial. It's exactly what you see when you see images of the the gypsy woman staring into the crystal ball, or any of the occult images, from the black and white photographs. When the man is staring into the crystal ball, right? He's using the stare technique. Next, again, practice your Kundalini and your Kegels, right? The semen retention. The Kegels is where you're squeezing those groin muscles from your root chakra. You're pushing those naturally made chemicals upward. They are refilling your chakras. You're doing all of this in combination with your breathing, creating your resonant energy balloon. Okay, so the next advanced magical technique after the stare is summoning your demons. Again, the way that we do this is you're going to stare at the candle, right? You stare at that flame. You're surrounded by darkness in your room, and you're staring at the flame. Again, in the state of somnambulance, listening to the music, doing your breath work and Kundalini, and you're going to stare at that flame for several minutes without blinking. And then when you do, you look away. When you look away, that flame is going to still be in your eye. You're still going to see it, right? It's going to be kind of burned into your mind, and you're going to see it floating around the room. And then what I would do is I would use that flame to entice the demons out of either the black mirror, or on the Goetia tarot card deck that I have, there was a black portal on the back of the cards. So I would have the cards that I was pulling from sitting there on the table, and I would put that flame over the black portal, almost like I was fishing, and I would just let it float there and call them forward, right? And again, you can use this technique for so many different ways. You can stare at a picture from your phone in the darkness and then look away, and you're going to see that picture floating in front of you. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do this technique, you can do that. Again, I just call it summoning your demons. Maybe there's a better term for it. But again, you're going to stare at a light source, and then you're going to look away. You can do this right now with your sober mind. You don't even have to be doing magic. Stare at a light source in the dark, look away. You'll see it floating there, right? Next is, again, facing your demons. So you're going to have the black mirror sitting in front of you. You're going to have the candle lit behind the mirror. When you do that, the black mirror becomes just a pitch dark portal. You're going to sit just a few feet away from the black mirror. The candle is going to be gently lighting your face. You just want to barely see your face in the mirror. Then when you're listening to the music, you're doing the Kundalini, you're doing the breath work, in that state of somnambulance, you're going to stare into the black mirror, and you're going to see your face start to change. You're going to see it change in all sorts of animalistic type images that really look like demons, right? So you're going to face your demons. And when you do that, you're then going to ask them questions. You're going to talk with them. You're going to communicate and commune with them. Again, next, this is kind of like the summoning your demons. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to see a negative altar. So again, you can stand there in front of your altar that's lit up by one candle. You're going to stare at the whole picture, right? The whole altar in front of you. You're going to stare at the candle for a few minutes, and then you're going to close your eyes. And when you do this, you're still going to see your altar in front of you, but it's going to be a negative version of it. And then that's where you're going to actually be able to do some of those kind of Doctor Strange type, movements, right? Where you're going to use your magic wand to create a portal in front of you, and you're going to hallucinate. You're going to see the portal forming in front of you in your mind. Again, your eyes are closed, but you're going to see this. Again, all of this kind of negative version of your altar in front of you. And you can do all these kind of tracer-like movements. And again, it looks just like the movies. And it's up to you, whatever you want to imagine, whatever you want to see. Next is the third eye. Again, this is one of those things they always tell you, don't ever look at yourself in the mirror when you're on a hallucinogenic drug. Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. Once the psilocybin is kicked in, you look in a mirror. When I did this only one time, I used a regular mirror, but it probably would work in a larger black mirror. But basically, you look at yourself in the mirror, but you use the stare technique, again, where you're staring through yourself. And you're going to basically create double vision. There's going to be two versions of your head kind of floating there. And you need to push them far enough apart to where your eyes converge in the middle. You're going to see your left eye, your right eye, and then you're going to see the combined eye in the middle. That's your third eye. And I'm telling you, folks, when you do this, and you try to look at the third eye, when you try to focus on it, the more you try to look at it with your actual eyes, the more it starts to look away on its own, as if it's its own eyeball and it's being controlled by something else. Very intense, very cool, very strange, right? That's your third eye. And then again, one of the darkest magical practices that I've done, called the reverse resonant energy balloon. So Robert Monroe in the Gateway Experience tapes teaches us about the resonant energy balloon, where we are breathing fresh air, white light energy in through our nose. We breathe in through our nose. And when we do that, we are visualizing white light coming up through our feet. And as we do, we're pulling that white light upwards in a swirling motion, right? In a spiraling motion upwards. And as it does, it's refilling your chakras. And again, what this is doing is it's creating an environment, and it's a practice of the Kundalini. As you're breathing in, you're doing the Kegels, you're pushing that energy upwards, and it's refilling your chakras with those bright colors. Each one, you feel it in your groin, your root chakra. Then you feel it in your belly. You feel it in your heart. Your heart starts to beat. You have the butterflies in your stomach. Your throat starts to swell. Your brain is just all of a sudden enlightened with all this electricity. And then as you exhale out your mouth, you're going to visualize that white light pouring down around you like a fountain. Again, this is the fountain of youth, the Kegels, the semen retention, the Kundalini. That is the fountain of youth, folks. There is no real fountain that's going to make you live forever. This is literally just for old men like myself who need a boost of testosterone and a boost of those kind of oxytocin type chemicals. That's what this is. That is what the fountain of youth is. It is the resonant energy balloon. You see this white light pour down around you in your balloon, and then you breathe it back in. You do this over and over and over again. Not only does it create the environment for those chemicals to flow through your body, it's an amazing feeling, but then you add the spiritual or esoteric ideas to it, where you are you're strengthening yourself. You are creating a barrier around yourself to stop negative energy from coming into your physical body and into your soul, right? You can allow love and healing out of the balloon when you want to. You can accept energy in from people who love you. It's not just the physical chemicals that are flowing through, but it is also a spiritual practice. That is your resonant energy balloon. Now, again, I did something called the reverse resonant energy balloon, where instead, in my darkest days, in my days where I was filled with anger and hatred, I breathed in through my mouth, reversing that energy flow. So instead of the white light flowing from the top, from the crown chakra and pouring down around me, I visualized the darkness, breathing it in through my mouth and the darkness coming into my mind. And as I would exhale out my nose, the darkness would swirl downwards, almost like the black goo from the movies, covering my chakras in darkness. Again, be very careful with this one. This is a magical technique that I have been unable to reverse. My chakras have never quite lit up the same way since I did the reverse resonant energy balloon. And again, as you visualize this, for me, I saw my legs turn into snakes, right? Black snakes or black dragons, if you will, just like from the anime movies, just like the spiritual, monster known as Abraxas, the chicken-headed god who has those snake-like legs. I believe that's where that image comes from. I believe it literally is from men of primeval days practicing the reverse resonant energy balloon. Do with it what you will, but be careful. Now, again, those were just some of the advanced magical techniques. Those are some of the basic steps for doing the magic at the altar. And again, do whatever you want. This is chaos magic. Whatever type of practice you want, why, whatever purpose you want, do it for whatever reason you want, right? And again, with whatever style and whatever belief system that you want to do this for. And those are the actual techniques of actually practicing magic. And now once you're done with your ritual, which for me, it took 2 to 3 hours, maybe 4 hours sometimes. It would take time to do this, right? Once you're done, really just shake it off. That's what I would like to do. I'd like to have fun. I like to dance a little bit, right? The last few songs on the Don't Sleep video were a little more upbeat. I would just kind of dance it off, shake it off, because again, the magical rituals are going to be very intense. And by then, usually the psilocybin and the THC starts to wear off and you kind of wake up out of it, right? Number 7 here is some words of warning. Be careful. So remember that the doses of psilocybin and THC are going to be dependent on the magician. It's going to be different for everyone. My low dose may be different from your low dose, but try to stick with the low dose. And again, skip the heroic dose, right? This idea that you got to take 5 grams or whatever it is, right? There may be a time when you need to do that. But if you take too much psilocybin, number one, the effects are going to overwrite your ability to think and focus on the Gateway Experience tapes. If you take too much psilocybin and you end up curled up in the fetal position and throwing up, you're not going to be able to do your magical ritual, right? You're not going to be able to control your hands, Even on the low dose, it is so hard to try to use your phone to take pictures, to try to pull the tarot cards. It's very difficult. It's like when you're drunk, right? When you drink too much alcohol, you can't control your physical body. It's very difficult. It's sort of the same way with magic mushrooms. You have to be very careful about that. You want to be able to stay in physical control. So again, dose dependent. And then water is your best friend. If you find that you've taken too much THC, if you've ingested too much psilocybin through the magic mushrooms, drink water. Just drink a ton of water and take a piss. Drink it, piss it, right? You're going to, all those chemicals, they're going to come right out of you when you take a leak. That's really, it happened to me a few times where I felt like things were getting a little too intense. Just drink as much water as you can and go to the bathroom. Also, the opposite. If you maybe took too, or if you took just enough or maybe a little bit too little, don't go to the bathroom. Hold it as long as you can, because again, when you do, you're going to piss out all of those, the toxins that were kind of getting everything flowing, right? And then most importantly, do not hurt yourself or others. Let me repeat that. Do not hurt yourself or others in your magic. If you are going down the road where you are hurting yourself or someone else or animals or anything like that, you are out of control. You've gone down the wrong path. Yes, what I am talking about is black magic, right? It's dark arts. It's left-hand path, okay? But it is not cruelty. It is not self-harm. It is not hurting others. That is not anything that I've talked about in any of my magical work here. It's all about self-help. It's about healing the mind, body, and spirit. We've talked about white magic and black magic. You practice them both in the things that I've taught you here. But even in my darkest hours, even in the scariest rituals, again, there is no fear here in the Mind War. I did not hurt myself or anyone else. It's not necessary. And in fact, all it's going to do is backfire on you, I promise. And then finally, the eighth and final thing here, there is only one commandment here in the Mind War, and that is to have your own experiences and share them with others, okay? You cannot practice magic without having the magical experiences. That's what I am sharing with you here. This is the most important part of the work that I've done. I tried so hard, all the studying, all the attempted belief that I did throughout my life, over and over and over again, resulted in meaningless, just jargon, basically. Nothing felt right. There were no experiences. But now, through the use of the Gateway Experience tapes in combination with the low-dose THC and psilocybin, and then getting into that state of somnambulance, listening to that hypnotic music, doing the Kundalini, doing the breath work, doing the advanced magical techniques like the stare as part of your magical ritual, you are going to have experiences, physical experiences that they're going to change your outlook. It's fun. It feels good. Finally, some type of real spiritual experience, right? Just like we were told men in the old days had, the man of antiquity, all the heroes from all the past stories, they were allowed to have these type of spiritual experiences. But the organizations, corporations, and institutions that pollute our minds, poison our bodies, and corrupt our souls today, they tell us we're not allowed to have these type of spiritual experiences anymore, and that they're evil. That is a lie. You can have magical experiences. And when you do, once you've had your own magical experiences, you have to share it with others. It's the only way the Mind War is going to grow. And when we return, we're going to take a look at how magic has affected my life in just a moment. All right, welcome back, folks. So one of the most important things that we talk about here in the Mind War podcast, especially in this series on magic, is not only how to do the magic, how to conduct it, like we just talked about, step by step, magic by numbers. But one of the things that I think has been very unique with the way that I've been sharing all of this with you, again, sharing my experiences with you, is I am sharing the outcome of the magic. I'm sharing with you the magical results that occurred from doing these rituals. And what I like to call these, and you've heard this throughout the series, is these magical coincidences. Now, again, we do not believe in coincidences here in the Mind War. These things that occurred were, in my opinion, nothing more than supernatural. I don't know how else to explain it. But again, these just weren't coincidences. It was very strange, all of this stuff. And I have a list here. And we start with my medication. So again, in the very early days of my practice, within just the first few months, I told you about how I have a digestive disorder, and that I had been working with the VA medical team for months and months trying to get some new medication to help relieve some of the pain and the suffering that I go through with this digestive disorder. And it took such a long time, and this was after 20 years of dealing with this pain, right? And then just a few months into doing my magical work, this was back in 2022, listening through the Gateway Experience tapes for the very first time, I did the tape that talks about, it's called the Living Body Map. Again, remember, you are standing there in the sleep dojo, in the darkness, in the abyss, in the upside down world of Stranger Things, right? So you're there in the darkness, and Robert Monroe instructs you to visualize a mirror in front of you. You see your silhouette in the mirror. You see your shadow in the mirror. You don't see yourself, you see your shadow. And he says, I want you to light up your shadow in different colors. And each color is going to represent a different physical system of the body, your nervous system, your digestive system, your skeletal and your muscular system, right? And with each color, he said, I want you to visualize, and if there is any place where the light is dull or flickering, that's where you may have some physical anomalies. And then we're going to take our magic wand, right? Our energy toolbar. That's what he taught us to make, is our energy toolbar. We stretch it out, right? That is our magic wand. That's the magic wand you use in the upside down world, in the darkness, right? He says you're going to wave it over that area of your body where you see the light flickering, and you're going to heal yourself. I did that tape, and just 3 days later, again, the 3 days, folks, it comes up over and over and over again in my work. Just 3 days after doing that tape, I received my first dose of medication from the VA for my digestive disorder. And for the first time in over 20 years, I began really, maybe not necessarily healing. There's definitely been some healing. My disease is still there. When my medication is late or anything, if I take it late, I get these symptoms coming back. Really, it's awful. It's an awful reminder. But at least I was able to heal and get some relief from the pain and suffering of this disease, right? But again, just 3 days after doing that tape, I received the medication. So number 2, another magical coincidence here. So I told you the story of one night where I had this strong urge to draw a picture. I went to bed early. I couldn't fall asleep. I was tossing and turning. And I was like, I have to get up and draw a picture for some reason. This was on September 29th, 2022. Okay. I got up. I went out into the living room. I got the TV tray ready. I got some paper and some pencils. Leo was sitting there, my Boston Terrier, my best buddy. I smoked a little bit of weed, and then I drew a picture. I just started doodling, right? These weird pictures that were coming up that I just felt like I had to get out of my system. I don't know why. I just felt this urge to get these drawings out. As soon as I finished the drawing, I felt relief. I packed everything up. Leo and I went back to bed. I fell sound asleep, right? The very next day, I was watching a video about the 1933 World's Fair, where the Jewish community, there were several different days where all these different communities would put on these big pageants at the stadium. And so for the Jewish community, they put on this big pageant, right? And basically in this event, they had a giant statue of Moloch, this bull god, and they had a man dressed in a wizard suit, basically sacrificing children into this giant statue as it was burning. Very strange. But the strange part is the pamphlet for that event looked exactly like the drawings that I drew the night before. Almost a 1-for-1 match. It was so strange, and that shocked me. I said, holy shit, what just happened? Why did I have this urge to draw this image, and then the very next day I see it in this video, this very strange video, again from the 1933 World's Fair, where the Jewish community was having this very elaborate kind of ceremony where they were doing this child sacrifice kind of representation. Very strange. But what that did is it made me think about, really for the first time in years, think about my friend Joey, aka Deog, the member of the Judeo-Christian cult called the 12 Tribes. You can find them at 12tribes.org. They are the cult that runs the Yellow Deli. Joe, or aka Deog, has been a member of this cult for 25 years. Again, this is the subject of my next series here on the Mind War podcast. It really made me think about Joe for the first time. I had lost contact with him for over a decade, 10 years, folks, I hadn't contacted him. I didn't really even think about him. He just was kind of out of sight and out of mind, right? And this is again a kid I met when I was 5 years old. He was 9 years old. We were best friends all growing up. We went into the military together. After the military, we spent time together. Once he joined the cult, I spent years visiting him, making sure that he was okay, and I almost joined the cult with him. Very strange, right? So I'm sitting there thinking about Joe, right? And I said, okay, I need to go on 12tribes.org. I want to see if he's okay, if he's still there. And lo and behold, I look at the location in the 12 Tribes community in Colorado. I knew he was still out in Colorado. And sure enough, there's a picture of him and his wife and his kids, a big smile on his face. He looked great. And I was so excited. I was very relieved to see that he was there. But it was very strange, right? So, again, that was September 29th, 2022, and then the days following. So during the next full moon, which was October 9th, 2022, okay? So just within less than 2 weeks later, on the next full moon, I do my magical ritual. I listen to the Gateway Experience tapes, and while I'm listening to one of the tapes, I'm floating out there in the abyss, in the darkness, and I'm thinking about Deag again. I'm thinking about Joe in the 12 Tribes community. And this time, it's not with relief, it's more with anger. Because I remember how difficult it was to be around them. When you listen to their pitch about why you should join the cult, it was very demanding and damning. They basically said, listen, if you don't join us, you're going to hell. So as a young man, a young family man, newly married with children, this was very difficult to hear because, again, I always wanted to believe. I thought we had to be Christians. I thought these are the people who are doing it. These are the people who are living the Bible. And it was very difficult to hear that. And it was very difficult to step away from them and finally say, listen, I don't care if I'm going to hell or not. I'm not joining this cult. I'm not leaving my family. Because again, they would tell us often, you have to leave your family. You might have to leave your children behind. And just that never felt right to me. So again, while I am listening to this tape, I am floating in the abyss and I am filled with anger and hatred for these people. And I say, and I scream out into the darkness. I scream out into the abyss. I see you, Deag. Over and over and over again, I scream into the abyss. I see you, Deag. That was on October 9th, 2012. 3 days later, the YouTube pranksters known as Reckless Ben and Danny Burke release their series on the 12 tribes. They release a series where they go undercover in the 12 tribes for several weeks, about 3 weeks, in the tribe of Vista, California, which is the exact tribe that I used to spend all of my time with. I spent countless nights, countless Friday nights with the 12 tribes in Vista, California. Absolutely amazing. And within just a few weeks, they were there for 3 weeks. It took months for them to release all the videos, right? Because of course they're great YouTubers. They put a video out once a week to keep you attached, to keep you coming back, right? So a few months later, they left the Vista community and went to Colorado. And the first person that they came in contact with at the Colorado community was my friend Deag. I was blown away. I haven't seen this man in over a decade. And I made him appear on my television screen, folks. Now, when we went through the Gateway Experience tape series, there was a tape called Exploring Intuition, in which Robert Monroe guided us to explore an intuitive event in our lives. And that night, while listening to the tape, I thought about the evening where I had this urge to draw the picture, the same picture that appeared in the video the next day, the picture of this pamphlet, right? While listening to that tape, in my out-of-body state, in my second state, I visualized myself sitting there on the couch. And I thought I was just going to watch the event happen, but no. In my second state body, I actually went into my physical body in this intuitive memory, possessed myself, and I drew the image for me. Future me went into the past, remembered a past intuitive event, and then possessed my own body and provided the information for that intuitive event. Absolutely groundbreaking information I'm sharing with you. When you have an intuitive event, it is you from the future coming back and sharing information with you from the past. Absolutely fucking amazing. Truly, truly was. The next magical coincidence here wasn't necessarily 3 days, but this all happened within 1 month. So in December of, I believe it was 2022, at the end there, I pulled the death card. 2 weeks after I pulled the death card, I received a phone call from my Gemini twins stating that my uncle had been diagnosed with end-stage liver cancer. He battled alcoholism for almost 50 years. And Uncle Steve died during the next full moon. So I pulled the death card on one full moon, and he died literally hours after the next full moon, after I pulled my next tarot card. Again, we don't believe in coincidences here in the Mind War. We also do not believe that pulling a card causes death. The full moon simply is a reflection of what's going on in your life. It is a warning of sorts. It is giving you a crystal clear picture of what's happening in your life. So the next magical coincidence here was a little bit more fun, and this was regarding the Red Bar video. So again, I made a short video thanking Mike and Jules over at Red Bar Radio for basically, you know, the motivation to really make the set better here in the Mind War Studios. Prior to this, the lighting was bad, the microphone was bad, everything was bad. It looked terrible. But you know, I was a big fan of Red Bar Radio. I loved watching the show, and I really looked at their set. They talked about their set quite a bit, and I took all of the kind of cues from them and learned from what they did, all the different layers of lighting, making sure the background is nice and dark, right? And from that, you see this beautiful set that we are in now. So I made a video thanking Mike Redbar, telling him, you know, thank you so much for inspiring me to upgrade the Mind War Studios. And 3 days later, because I sent Mike the video in a DM on Instagram, and 3 days later, he played that video on Red Bar Radio. I was fucking blown away, folks, right? I mean, this was such a huge honor. And the idea that it came just 3 days later is wild, because this is not a show that you just get access to. This is not a show that you just get put on. You know, they have, when you watch the show, they have hundreds of different topics that they could choose from, that they could talk about. And 3 days later, He pulls mine after almost no vetting whatsoever of who I am or what I talk about. I think Jules understood a little bit about who I am and the messages that I share here. But really just blown away. Again, 3 days later after making that video for Red Bar and sending it to him, he plays it on his show. Absolutely amazing. The next one, the next magical coincidence, we kind of talked about this in the last segment here, the shadow spider, right? I mean, this was wild. This is a night where I am standing in the darkness in my living room. I'm very upset from events that occurred at work when I was working at the library, when a black guy pulled a knife on me and threatened to kill me. That was very upsetting. So I'm standing there in my living room, very upset, and I'm doing the reverse resonant energy balloon. I'm breathing that darkness in through my mouth, breathing the darkness into my mind, and when I exhale out my nose, I visualize millions of shadow spiders coming out of my nose. I don't know why. I don't know that I've ever seen that imagery before. It just came to me. So all these shadow spiders came out of my nose. The very next day, I began working on a video. And sure enough, in that video, I use a projector, right? And I'm projecting the images of a big Christian cross on the wall next to my sigil here. And all of a sudden, on that giant Christian cross, a giant shadow spider starts to crawl across the wall. I mean, 2 feet in diameter. Just blew my mind. I go, what the fuck is happening, right? I mean, this blew me away. There was a small spider, a real spider, inside of the projector, and it was walking across the lens, and we saw its shadow on the wall. A giant shadow spider appeared just right after I had visualized all of these shadow spiders coming out of my nose. Absolutely insane. So the next magical coincidence here, again, we don't believe in coincidences here in the Mind War, involves my friend Callie and our daughter, the Moon Princess. Like, again, this was, Callie is a woman who I dated right after I got a divorce out in California. In fact, our first date was at one of the Yellow Delis, the one in Vista, California. And, she had stayed out in California, and then I called her and we had stayed in contact. And, when I first started my magical work here, she called and let me know that she was pregnant. And I was so excited for her. And I found out a little bit about the biological father and found that he was kind of a troublemaker. He'd been in some trouble with the law, and he was kind of harassing her, right? She basically said to him, listen, I know we had a few flings. We had our little fun. She said, I found myself pregnant. I want to keep the baby, but I'm not asking you to participate. This is a guy who has multiple children from multiple mothers already. And she said, listen, I'm not asking you to be the dad and participate in all that stuff. I just want to let you know that I'm going to, have this child. And he was pretty upset about that. And again, at this point, I think he was back on drugs. He was starting to wig out a little bit, if you will. And she was telling me about this, and it was very upsetting because Callie and I had started to talk about maybe having her and her daughter move out here to Michigan, after she gives birth, right? And trying to make this little family work. But this idea that the bio dad was going to be out there on drugs, maybe harassing us and causing trouble, that was very frightening for both of us. So I would say just about 3 months before she gave birth, I did a magical ceremony, again, where I was very angry. And I said, this guy has to disappear. He has to go. I'm not going to be able to move Callie and the Moon Princess out here to start our little family if he is going to be a drug-addled maniac who is causing all sorts of problems for us. And so there I am in the abyss. I am pushing my hatred for him. I'm saying this guy has to go. We cannot be dealing with this trouble anymore. And it was lethargic. It felt good. I don't think the word I'm looking for here. It felt good to get all that emotion out, to push it out there into the darkness, push it into the black mirror, push it into the abyss. And again, folks, just 3 days later, Callie texted me and said that he's been arrested. The bio dad was arrested. He was again on drugs. He went to his family's home trying to, steal things from them, trying to get money from them. He had already been arrested for felonies in the past, and I believe he was kind of on the run, if you will. He had a firearm on him, so now he's a felon with a firearm. He went to his family's home to, again, steal from them, take money from them or whatever, and wouldn't let them leave. So when he was arrested for a felon with a firearm who was kidnapping. So, man, that is not good. And he went to jail for 10 years. He's currently serving a 10-year sentence for the crimes that he's committed. And he was removed from the equation, just like I had asked. The next coincidence here kind of plays along with that. And it really, that was a dark coincidence that occurred there. And this is the light side. So throughout my tarot card pulling, I would see these matching tarot cards. And we're going to talk more about this in the next one as well. But this one that happened recently here, just in the last few months, was I pulled the Three of Cups. And that basically shows a skull with two other skulls pouring liquid into the first skull. And out of the first skull, a flower is growing. So for me, that first skull with the flower in it, that represented the Moon Princess. The two other skulls represented Callie and I, pouring our love and our knowledge into the Moon Princess as she grows, right? The next card I pulled was the King of Swords. That represented myself. I was the King of Swords in this situation. Then the very next card that I pulled was the Sword. Again, all of these card pulls it's one card for the new moon, and then I have to wait till the full moon. So this is weeks goes by in between my tarot card pulls. And I pulled one from the Magnolia Tarot card deck and then the other from the Goetia Tarot card deck. Two separate card decks, weeks apart. So again, I pulled the King of Swords, and then I pulled the Sword. And then the next card that I pulled was the High Priestess, again representing Callie. So now we have in the tarot cards an image of our little family. And it was amazing. That felt really good. And another example of this, these card pulls and how they work, right? So again, right after the death of Uncle Steve, where I had pulled the death card and he had passed away by the next full moon, that full moon, I pulled the Page of Wands. Again, you can think of a page as sort of an initiate who is there to take care of the wands. Or if you pull the Page of Swords, he's there to care for the swords, right? So in this instance, I pulled the Page of Wands from the Magnolia Tarot card deck on a full moon. On the next new moon, I pulled the Wand card. Page of Wands from the Magnolia Tarot card deck on the full moon. 2 weeks later, on the new moon from the Goetia Tarot card deck, I pull the Wand card. Listen, I listen to the cards, folks. When they instruct me to do something, I do it. The very next day, I started working on my magic wand. I built my magic wand. We've talked about that. So the cards told me to build something. I manifested it in my real life by doing the work. again, there is no manifestation without imagination. There is also no manifestation without putting in the work. I actually built the wand, and then 2 weeks later on the full moon, I pulled the magician card, where I was actually finally, after almost 2.5 years, promoted to actually being a magician. All of that work I had put in, I was finally promoted to becoming the magician. So again, those two coincidences there are examples of how the tarot cards work, and how you're going to find meaning in your tarot card pulls as well. Next, this is when we were coming to the final episodes of the Mind War series on the Gateway Experience tapes. We were reading through Robert Monroe's final book, the very last paragraph, or the last chapter. And I said, when I do this podcast and we read through the books, I'm constantly stopping and doing commentary on what I'm reading. But I said, folks, this final chapter of Robert Monroe's third book is so heartfelt. I'm just going to read through. I'm just going to read through the chapter. I'm not going to do any commentary or any interruptions. And in that chapter, he talked about how he was dealing with his wife's impending death, and how emotional it was for him, and why he was doing so much work. And as I was reading that, there was a chapter, and in the last sentence, it ended up where I read his wife's name, Nancy Penn Monroe. And as soon as I said her name, a yellow highlighted marker that was sitting on the shelf in front of me, where the camera is, where the laptop is, right? It rolled off the shelf and landed on the floor. Nancy Penn Monroe. Well, folks, that noise that you just heard was a highlight marker that is sitting on the stand just below the camera. That that yellow highlighting marker has been sitting in that exact same place for almost an hour, 2 hours that we've been recording thus far. And just now, as I'm reading through this, it just rolled off the piece of paper and landed on the floor as soon as I said her name. That marker had been sitting there for like 2 hours, maybe more. And as soon as I said her name, it rolled off the floor, and I just said, what the fuck? I stopped what we were doing. It was very shocking. And again, magical coincidence? I think not. I think that was a supernatural event. I think Robert and Nancy were here with me. I think they were here with us on the Mind War podcast, showing appreciation for the reverence and the love that we have for them in the work that they did. And then finally, this 10th magical coincidence here. As we went through the Gateway Experience Tapes series, the majority of the tapes, really waves 1 through 6, there's 8 waves, right? The first 30-something tapes were really about self-help, learning white healing magic, healing your own mind, body, and spirit. And so I was very taken aback when all of a sudden in waves 7 and 8, we take this dramatic turn away from self-help, and we begin helping people who have recently died move into the afterlife. And again, Robert Monroe created these final tapes because he was dealing with his wife's impending cancer death. So as his way to kind of deal with these emotions, he created these tapes where he was visualizing helping her move into the afterlife. While we were going through that series, folks, right when those tapes transitioned from self-help to helping people who have recently died go into the afterlife, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. And over the next 3 months, as I finished up those tapes, I assisted my mother in moving into the afterlife. I was there with her physically during her physical death, and I was there with her spiritually as I helped her spirit move up through the different layers that lay outside of our physical life. And throughout that whole process, I shared it with you here on the Mind War podcast. I appreciate you being here. And as always, remember, folks, harden your hearts and open your minds, because this is Mind War.